Let's talk to the spokesman for Benjamin Netanyahu's government, Eylon Levy. Good morning to you, Mr. Levy.
Good morning, Nick. For the first time in nearly 50 days, we can say good morning, a small glimmer of good news on the road to getting back all 240 of those hostages.
And yet you heard him there, even someone who is so hopeful that he will see loved ones, he will see his relatives. It is very dangerous to deal with Hamas. Now, clearly there were voices raised at that Israeli cabinet meeting yesterday who said, don't do it, don't do this deal. Why did your Prime Minister decide to do it?
Of course, nobody likes this, but Hamas is holding 240 hostages, including over 30 children. We have a moral obligation to bring them home. So we're holding our noses and we're doing what we have to do. You know, there are children in there. There is a 3-year-old girl we're hoping will be released. Her father was murdered in front of her. She was torn away from his arms, and she's been held in a dark tunnel for nearly 50 days now. Who's feeding her? Who's bathing her? Who's washing her? Who's holding her? Is she cuffed? Has she seen daylight in 50 days? I mean, these people are living through a horrific nightmare. We have to bring them home, and that's why we have agreed to this deal, so that we can start to bring back our hostages, and we'll continue until we bring all of them home.
Let's talk about the price that has been agreed for that. We're told 4 days of pause. To be clear, not a ceasefire. And does it mean that military activity, surveillance, drones and the rest, they continue in Gaza?
Indeed, we're not talking about a ceasefire, we're talking about a temporary cessation in order to get our hostages out. And once that is over, one of two things will happen. If Hamas wants to continue releasing more hostages, we have agreed to an additional 1-day pause for every 10 hostages they release. The ball is firmly in their court. And if they do not want to release more hostages, we will continue. And we will continue at full force to continue putting pressure on Hamas to release the hostages and ultimately to destroy that terror organization. You know, Hamas hasn't suddenly come around to the idea of releasing a 10-month-old baby from captivity because they realized that that is an evil thing to do. It's responding to pressure, to unrelenting military pressure from Israel, and we plan to continue applying pressure so that Hamas will release all of those hostages eventually, not just the women and children. We want all 240 of them safe and sound back home.
And it is a very, very big if they were to continue at the rate that you're talking of. It would win them, 15 days of ceasefire. Just to be clear, you're saying even if they release them all, which is unlikely, isn't it, you would continue the war?
Nick, this war has to end with the end of Hamas, because if it doesn't,
what does that mean?
Then there will be... It means we're going to totally destroy Hamas's terrorist and governing infrastructure inside the Gaza Strip, and we're coming after every Hamas rocket launcher, every tunnel, and every Hamas terrorist. Because if we don't do this, if we don't end it this time, there will be a next time. And the next time will be worse, because Hamas will be emboldened to attack us again. It's promising openly that it wants to perpetrate another October 7th massacre, and again and again and again. It's proven that it has the capabilities to do so. And you know, Nick, as honored as I am to be on the Today Show for the 3rd time in a month, I really don't want to be speaking to you again live on air in 6 months' time when Hamas attacks us again and we get dragged into another round of fighting.
What progress can you show for the military activity there has been so far that has caused such desperate hardship to Palestinians, the loss of so many lives, the loss of livelihoods, the loss of homes, the loss of limbs as well? We've seen the odd tunnel, 1, 2, 3 tunnels shown to us. Now, of course, there may be plenty that you're not showing to the outside world, but are you anywhere remotely close to what you describe as the end of Hamas?
First of all, we're very close to completing operations in northern Gaza and rooting out Hamas infrastructure. It's not the odd tunnel. We have exposed very many tunnels and killed thousands of terrorists. Just yesterday, we showed that blast door at the end of the 55-metre-long tunnel at the bottom of the 10-metre shaft inside the Shifa hospital, infrastructure that, by the way, many people, many journalists were very sceptical about. We breached that blast door and we're continuing to expose Hamas's terrorist infrastructure. We've shown the tunnel shafts poking out under kids' beds. We've shown the rockets that are being hidden under a girl's mattress.
But what you haven't yet shown is a command and control centre under Al-Shifa Hospital, have you? We were told, indeed the BBC never raised scepticism about the tunnels, because we reported on the first day it was discussed by the Israeli government that some of the infrastructure beneath the hospital had actually been built by Israeli architects at the time the hospital was built in more peaceful times. The issue was there a command and control centre, as Israel said, for Hamas under the hospital? As yet, you haven't found evidence of that, have you?
So first of all, the fact that Israel helped the Palestinians build a hospital in the 1980s isn't the mic drop moment I think some people think it is. Every hospital has a basement. The question is what they're using it for, and Hamas used it as a command and control center. Now, I wish that on the first day we went into the Shifa hospital, we could have had a Wizard of Oz moment where we pulled back the curtain and said, ta-da, here's the whole complex. But this is a heavily fortified complex that has been booby-trapped, and it will take time to expose the full thing. We've already shown that the Shifa hospital had far more RPGs than you would find in a regular hospital, that it had tunnels with blast doors and firing holes. You don't find those in most hospitals. It's clear that Hamas has been abusing that hospital for military purposes. It's why the United States has backed up our intelligence. It's why even the European Union has condemned Hamas for its use of hospitals as human shields. And I hope that when it is safe and we have cleared the booby traps and secured the area, we'll be able to bring the whole international media to show just how cynically Hamas used the Shifa hospital, other protected facilities, jeopardizing their protected status under international law as well, in pursuit of its strategy of trying to hide behind women and children.
Isn't one of the reasons that Israel has finally agreed to an offer that was open for some weeks, I think this deal was discussed by Qatar pretty much since the hostages were taken, that the United States are now saying that they are unhappy with plans to continue your military operation in the south of Gaza without any evidence of how you will protect the civilians. They do not wish to see a repeat of what has been seen in the north of Gaza, where the best figures we have, admittedly from a Hamas-controlled health ministry, but the best figures we have, you don't have alternative figures, I think, are that 14,000 people have died in Gaza.
So, let me address those casualty figures because I think it is important. First of all, yes, those are the numbers that are being produced by Hamas, the tame terror organization that on October 7th burned, beheaded, abducted babies and then lied about it. Okay, so it is not a credible source. Now, if you're asking me what are the exact casualty numbers, Nick, I can't tell you exactly how many Israelis were murdered in the October 7th massacre because we still have body bags of unidentifiable human remains. We are still counting the damage and working out what the exact
You're
death
not denying
toll is.
that thousands have died, are you?
No. Now, look, we know that, first of all, Hamas is exaggerating the numbers. You know that too. We also know that we've killed thousands of terrorists, a very large proportion of the total death toll. And we know that when this war ends and when we sum up the total combatant to civilian ratio, and when you compare that to other counterterrorism operations fought by Western armies in urban areas, I'm talking Afghanistan, Iraq, ISIS, even Yugoslavia, those numbers will show very clearly the lengths to which the Israeli army has gone in order to protect civilians, in order to get them out of harm's way. Again, we don't deny civilians get killed in war. That is a tragic consequence of every war, and it's a tragic consequence of this war that Hamas declared on us with the October 7th massacre, and that it has chosen to wage out of densely populated areas.
Eylon,
the densely populated areas we've been urging people to get out of harm's way from so that we can target the monsters who perpetrated the October 7th massacre.
Eylon Levy, thank you for joining us.